Hi, my name is Monica McGuire, and I've been a classroom teacher and instructional coach for 7 years. If there's anything I've learned, it's that the little tips and tricks are the things that will save you. Now, teachers right now are so enthralled with getting content to kids and changing their awesome discussion and activity plans in class to something that can be done online. So they may not have shared these little tips with you just yet. Today, I have 4 that should help you right away. The first one is chunking. Okay, chunking is something teachers do all the time. We chunk directions by splitting them up into more meaningful sections. We also chunk the tasks themselves. Right now, activities might be thrown at your kids all at once, and it's really hard for them to sort of self-regulate and find those meaningful chunks. So let's look at that. A lot of people will have manila folders or extra folders, even construction paper that can be folded like this to create a little cover. What you do with that is slip the paper inside. This works for a worksheet or a handout even. Slip it inside and then cut sections of just the front flap, not the back too, just the front flap, so that once you open each section, it reveals just one chunk of the paper. Then you can close it and move on to the next. Close it, move on to the next. One of the most effective ways to do this is to find on that paper where the directions are written. Make that first chunk just the directions. I'll talk next about how to code the directions to make sure kids are following them and understand what's expected. But that first section should really be the directions. Another way to use this strategy, or something similar to it, is to put on that flap on the inside so it's not distracting the whole time they're working. But on the inside, fill in a small break that they can take. Something like 2 minutes of drawing, or listening to music, taking an exercise break. There might be a chore around the house they can do. Close it, and then in a structured way, they move on to the next step. Okay, this works really well if you're noticing that your child is shutting down really quickly. It might be that they're just overwhelmed. They see this whole page, maybe it's 2-sided, maybe it's a full packet of information, and they're looking at that not knowing where the break times are or how much needs to get done right now, and all of that anxiety is a lot. It's much easier to just shut it down and walk away from it. So chunk it instead. If a folder isn't available, let's see. I've got a picture from an old video that I did about using your whole brain to learn. Just use a second piece of paper and chunk it, okay? I find it more meaningful to chunk by parts of the task instead of a time. But if a timer works for you and your kid and your family, use a timer. Set some times and just chunk it out. We're working for this much time. Then we'll take a small break. We'll come back to it. Okay, so that's chunking. Second idea, code the directions. Okay, we all know that directions should be read more than once. I highly recommend having them read it out loud. Okay, older kids might think it's kind of hokey. It works. Read it out loud. The first time, read it just all the way through. Get the gist of it. Second time, go back and do some annotating, something that's meaningful. The most meaningful tips I have, grab a highlighter, find all the verbs. Those verbs will help you find within those sentences what you're actually supposed to do, okay? Oftentimes as kids get older, the directions go from solve each equation, label your answer, to this huge paragraph of directions. So they need to break it down, okay? Finding verbs, numbering the steps, even grabbing a separate Post-it and turning that into a bulleted list will be really helpful. Okay, code those directions. Third thing, I'm going really quick, I know. Third thing, identify points of confusion. Huge. If you notice your kids skipping a lot of stuff or getting easily overwhelmed or coming to you every couple of minutes with a question, try this. Again, highlighter, Post-it, Give them a pen because it's maybe more interesting than a pencil, and the novelty will help them to actually do it. Try the question, whether it's in response to reading, if they watched a video and they're supposed to share an opinion, if it's somewhere within a math problem, have them try and then mark where they got stuck. Stickers are great for this too. Again, the novelty of being able to use a sticker might just make them think this much harder, okay? Being able to identify the exact spot where a kid gets lost or confused develops this keen sense of metacognition, which is huge for learning, but it's also a really great tool for communication between you and the kid's teacher, right? When I get a piece of paper back for homework that's half done, I need to spend instructional time teasing out why it didn't get done. Is it just a time issue? Did the student solve the first couple of problems and think, I get it, I don't need more practice? Maybe they got stuck because there's something different about that fourth question that they just didn't understand. I don't know. And so having to tease all of that out takes up time that teachers are well willing to do. But if the student can figure it out themselves, find exactly that spot where they get confused, now they understand they're learning better, and the teacher can deliver better targeted practice and instruction. Okay, so identify that point of confusion. Another point of confusion comes up is, I keep coming back to math, which strategy to use, okay? Or in language arts, right? How do I have to cite this? I don't know how to cite this differently than something that I have written in my notebook as an example. It seems different. I'm not really sure what to do. If you can articulate where you get confused, it's really good for your learning, okay? Talked about chunking, coding the directions, identifying points of confusion. Last thing that's a great tip to have in your bag of tricks while kids are home doing e-learning is to preview text. Okay, now I'm a literacy specialist, so lots of what I do revolves around reading. And oftentimes when I'm talking with teachers and kids, they focus on during reading and then after they read. Read this and reflect on it. Read this, answer the questions. And we craft really careful questions. But we forget so much of the important learning happens before they start reading. That's previewing text. This works for your kindergartner who has a couple of words on each page. It works for your high schooler who has a multi-page article that they need to tackle. Okay? When you preview text, it takes 20 or 30 seconds, really. Okay? And in 20 or 30 seconds, I can read the title, make a prediction what this article will likely be about. By looking at other text features like charts and pictures, other headings, bold text, I can find out main ideas, and I naturally start building connections to things I've learned about before. I start naturally asking questions innately about this text, about this topic, and I've picked up on the structure of the text. By that, I mean, is this compare and contrast? Is it a biography that will be chronologically written? Is it about one main topic and I'm simply learning supporting details? It's a descriptive text. Being able to identify all of that before I start reading the first sentence will be hugely helpful. It helps me organize my thinking, and by the time I get to that post-reading reflection, questions, essay, I can more readily head back to that text, identify evidence, and cite it accurately. While you're working with your kids, you're going to help them chunk. You're going to help them code to understand directions. They are going to identify their points of confusion and encourage them to preview or pre-read text. Good luck, love on those kids, and communicate with their teacher.